Radar Mino, a doom of destroyers, and today's subject for a guide. This guide, however, is gonna be a little bit different than the usual ones, as I'm gonna be specifically focusing on playing the tier 10 ship rather than the whole branch. And why is that? It is because even though we can switch our smokescreen for a radar on tier 8 and tier 9, I highly suggest you don't. And that's because of how Wargaming treated those ships in terms of concealment, gun traverse and the reload time. It's not very efficient and usually very painful to do so. So I suggest you just run smokescreen on them and just farm towards the Mino. So what makes Mino so special? Well, first of all, we have very great ratio between our radar range and duration to our concealment. We have 9 km concealment with 10 km radar that can last up to 54 seconds, almost ensuring that we have enough time to deal with enemy destroyer. Mino has also a couple other quirks to it. It is the ship that finally gets good turret traverse and very fast reload time. Pair it up with AP shells with improved characteristics, and not only improved AP angles, but also a very short fuse, making so that we can actually arm our shells even on small destroyers. Mino also has improved acceleration, making so that we are able to dodge with speed very easily. So what are the drawbacks of Mino? Well, many probably know it's armor. We basically do not have one. We have 18mm everywhere, which is on the same level as many destroyers do, but we also have very big exposed citadel with 100mm on it, making so that if we show broadside, every single AP shell arms on it, giving us a very painful experience. Technically, we can heal back most of the damage dealt to citadel with our super heal, but most of the time it's gonna be used to basically heal back the HE damage from the destroyers. In terms of the build, we want to focus on our concealment and reload time. Why not range? Because our guns perform very poorly on range. I already saw a range mod Neptunes and Minos, and I know that you feel that if you don't have range for the half of the map, it's bad, but it really isn't. You're just putting yourself in very unfavorable position by trying to shoot at range. Get close. Range where you're very effective against like cruiser and battleships is around 14 to 13 kilometers, while against destroyers is well within your concealment range plus the radar range. So around 10 kilometers, 2 to 9. The closer you are to destroyer, the more effective you are. From other upgrades, we need to run the turning mode, because we cannot equip the acceleration one due to the fact that we already have improved acceleration. Obviously, we switch our smokescreen for radar for the radar Mino build. I don't think I need to say it, but just in case. In terms of captain build, I highly suggest you should run the improved duration of the radar perk, adrenaline rush obviously, superintendent and extra concealment. Other perks I leave up to you and to your preference. I like the outnumbered perk due to the fact that I usually am outnumbered no matter what I do, so that extra speed lets me get out of the danger much easier, and the improved perk for extra AA damage, and the reduction of cooldown for the perks such as our radar, hydro and super heal. It really comes in handy when you need to deal with a lot of aircraft, trust me. And most important information, you need to paint your ship in very bright colors, such as pink for example. Why? Well, it's for emotional and psychological damage of the opponent. There's nothing scarier than pink Mino charging you Bawon when you're playing something of a forest shaman. Okay, so what is gonna be the playstyle? We need to play very aggressively, but also not too aggressively. There is a golden standard, there is golden middle within that. Where exactly is it? Well, at the start of the game, you need to see and try to evaluate what teammates do you have on the flank and what are the possible islands you can take as cover later on. And then you need to go close to the objective with your destroyer. If your destroyer has smoke, I highly suggest you ask to set you one up. Radar Mino plus a smoke screen from a destroyer is almost guaranteed securing the objective. However, if your destroyer doesn't want to cooperate, basically has no smoke screen because it, for example, is a Haaland, well, you need to also push with it, but less aggressively. You need to go in such a direction that it doesn't involve you giving broadside when you go for an island cover. Most of the ships cannot overmatch you. If these are not battleships and they are just cruisers, they cannot overmatch you. Well, unless it's something of a like good and lure, but most of the time they're gonna shoot HE anyways. You can tank HE shells very well if they are not shot from British battleship, that is. Because you have a super heal, you can heal back fire damage, flooding damage, and HE plus overpass. You cannot really heal that much of a citadel damage. Ergo, you need to make sure that if enemy shoots you with AP shells, they either have to not overmatch you, and you have to be bow in. So, for example, when you're facing a Des Moines, you want to be directly bow in, because if you just give slight amount of broadside, Des Moines with her upgraded AP can nuke you. But when you're facing something with an overmatch, you want to use your maneuverability to advantage so that they shoot at your 100mm belt and bounce off. They need to bounce off. If they do not bounce off, they're gonna nuke you to death. After securing that objective, since it's almost guaranteed, you need to make a certain evaluation. If the enemies are gonna hard push you, you have to either start running away and using your concealment and torpedoes to deal with enemies, or you basically make a last stand. Your torpedoes are great at dealing with an enormous amount of ships. Since you can fire one by one in a doomed train, ships without the ability to detect them, such as Hydro, will come to a great surprise when they land all their tops on the nose and explode the big ball of flame. If enemies are not gonna hard push you, well, you can farm over those islands. Most of the islands you can shoot over with due to the fact that your guns are incredibly floaty. And aiming at enemy superstructure makes so that you actually farm full pens with your AP, dealing tons of damage. And it's not healable as well. Okay, what happens in late game? In the late game, you're just a very big destroyer. Since most of the enemies are already dealt with, there's much less of a danger if you're just moving around the map. And running a radar allows you to deal with basically any kind of destroyer that tries to break through, so you can eliminate them out of the game without much risk, even in open water. You can duel enemy cruisers most of the time by straight up going towards them, and if they don't have upgraded AP, or generally do not really have great AP and gonna use HE, you're gonna win that fight. Otherwise, you try to wiggle yourself so that you can get close enough so that when they shoot, you just straightly torp them and go back to your angle. Simple concept, but not really that simple to execute. In terms of do's and don'ts for a radar miner, well, I want you to know that if you play radar miner, you need to play it very aggressively. You need to have the balls to push in without fear. And yes, many of the time you're gonna die. But that's just the price to pay for running radar. You need to get used to dying a lot when playing this ship. And that's true even for the smoke build. However, playing with radar gives you a little bit less cover, but more ability to trade off. Ergo, very often it's gonna be you trading DDs for your own life. Which doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna have a bad score in the end. Even though you don't really do that much damage as a smoke build, dealing damage to key targets such as destroyers actually gives a lot of score. In terms of don'ts, I don't want you to play cowardly behind island at all time. You need to experiment and limit test yourself on what you can and what you cannot do. Yes, it's gonna lead to some games being basically miserable for you, but it's gonna reward you so much when you make that aggressive play and it works. This is true dopamine rush. You're not gonna get this feeling from any other ship in this game. You're living on an edge. Radar Mino is made to be aggressive, high risk, high reward ship. From one extra topic I want to mention on how to actually deal with submarines and CVs, because that might be something that many people won't get while normally playing. In terms of dealing with submarines as a radar miner, well, you can't. I mean, you can spot them with a radar when they're on the surface, but well, even with hydro and radar active, there is still a range from where they cannot be detected and spot you. In terms of dealing with aircraft carriers, you do not really care about aircraft carriers dropping you. You care about them detecting you, and that's basically it. Unless those are very specific squadrons, such as MVR's rocket planes or Malta's carpet AP bombers. Those are the ones that actually can deal a lot of damage to you. You shouldn't really care that much about the torpedo planes, since you can dodge the torpedoes with speed and your maneuverability pretty easily. Whilst other squadrons that are based on HE are either not gonna deal any significant damage to you, or only the damage that you can heal up with super heal with press of a button. So if you were to choose between being bombed by Midway and being shot by a Des Moines, always try to dodge the Des Moines shells, never the Midway drop. So that was it for this short guide for Mino. I hope I helped you a little bit in terms of broadening up your perspectives on what the ship is and what it can do. There's nothing scarier for a destroyer player to see a bright pink radar Mino charging them. They're usually gonna wet their pants. Okay, it's been Senpai Silent here. See you next time. Bye bye.